I have a couple of questions for you all, and I'd like you to be extremely honest with yourself when answering them. When you're faced with a setback in life, or maybe you make a mistake at something you were trying to accomplish, are your initial thoughts negative or positive? When these less than ideal situations, scenarios, or outcomes blindside your attention, what is your automatic reaction when things don't go to plan? In 2015, I took on a world first 2,000 kilometer in 12-day ultimate triathlon from Morocco to Monaco. Swimming 25 kilometers across the Gibraltar Strait between Spain and Morocco, followed by cycling the entire southeastern Spanish coastline, which just so happens to be a similar distance to the length of the entire UK, before running the equivalent of 14 marathons across the south of France to Monaco. All of this in just 12 days. Things didn't always go to plan though. During the swim, I hurt my shoulder, which later needed 2 surgeries. I started to fall asleep on my bike from the long 18-hour days, as well as getting lost and losing my crew several times throughout this adventure. And then, on day 9, I tore my quadricep muscle while running, and I was reduced to an awkward hobble. This project was over 3 years in the making. I was now unable to run and could barely walk, with still 400 kilometers to reach my finishing point in Monaco. The ultimate triathlon, from the outside, started to look like it was over. Several years ago, while sharing this story on stage, delivering a keynote talk, I was asked a really simple question by someone in the audience. Luke, you seem like a really positive guy. Do you ever have negative thoughts when things don't go to plan? Whenever I'm faced with a setback or make a mistake, my initial thoughts are sometimes negative. I am only human. However, I then choose to be less negative to generate momentum towards being positive. Just like driving a car, it's not advised to go from reverse to 5th gear in one go. Moving through the gears one by one will help you transition from going backwards to flying down the motorway in 5th gear without ruining your gearbox. Thinking less negative is no different through asking yourself 3 simple questions. One by one, your honest answers to these questions will help your less negative thoughts generate a positive outcome. These questions are: what happened? How did it happen? Where do I now need to focus in order to move forwards? When you're faced with a setback or make a mistake, it's important to understand what happened, feel your disappointment, and then accept what has happened by acknowledging that you cannot change this outcome. On day 9 of the ultimate triathlon, with my quadricep now torn and barely able to walk, I was in excruciating pain. For a few minutes, I allowed the disappointment to wash over me, as I had spent years organising and creating this challenge, and I truly cared about the outcome. I didn't yell, blame anyone, or make a scene, because my adventure was about to end, and not the way I intended. Thinking less negative helped me accept what had happened. My muscle was already torn, and there was nothing I could do with what already had happened. So, Knowledge is power, the old saying goes. However, knowledge is only power if you truly understand it and use it. On day 9, as I hobbled along the south of France to my crew who waited anxiously for me, I continued to think less negative and asked myself, how did this quadricep tear happen? After 25 kilometers of swimming, multiple 18-hour days of cycling, and even falling asleep once while still upright on my bike, as well as getting lost several times, the how was easy to understand and accept. I pushed my body to its absolute limits, and it was starting to break down. Knowing how is important, because when you understand how a setback happens or you make a mistake, it can help you understand the mechanisms which can inhibit this from happening in the future. Once you understand how, thinking less negative also means being curious and completely honest with yourself about what your next steps could and should be. For me, during the ultimate triathlon, I wondered, how else could I get from where I was to where I wanted to go? With still 400 kilometers to cover before I reached my finishing line in Monaco, I wondered, could I use one leg to push down on a single pedal and propel myself towards Monaco? If I didn't use less negative thinking, and if I wasn't curious, I might have had negative thoughts like quitting, giving up, making excuses for myself, and ultimately not finishing the ultimate triathlon. Thinking less negative helped me generate momentum when being in the middle of a dark setback to generating momentum towards having a positive outcome. It's important, right? So, with my curiosity encouraging me to cycle with just one leg to Monaco, it was now time to generate another, less negative thought. This being, where do I now need to focus in order to move forwards? With still 400 kilometers to reach Monaco, and with 4 days remaining to hit my 12-day target, I created a process for myself to go through each and every day. Wake up, eat, drink plenty of coffee, and then cycle for 5 hours in excruciating pain. Eat, drink some more, and then rest. I knew if I completed this process for just 4 days, I would complete the ultimate triathlon. My muscle was torn. There was nothing I could do about this, so I knew I needed to focus on what I could control. My daily thoughts, what I ate and drank, and even the thoughts I created. My thoughts during these final 4 days weren't negative. I tried my best to keep them positive. However, this wasn't always easy due to the pain I was in. So I settled for less negative thinking. That thought being, where do I now need to focus in order to move forwards? Having a process to follow and accepting what has happened and focusing on only the things you can control helps you generate momentum towards having a positive outcome. After covering 2,000 kilometers over 12 days from Morocco to Monaco, I completed the ultimate triathlon with a smile on my face and positive thoughts running through my mind. I did this through being less negative and asking myself these three simple questions. What happened? How did it happen? And where do I now need to focus in order to move forwards? The answers to these questions helped me generate positive momentum. This momentum took me from nearly having to quit the ultimate triathlon on day 9 to being able to complete a world first 2,000 kilometre in 12-day swim, cycle and hobble from Morocco to Monaco. I think we all can agree that being negative and focusing on things you cannot control does not help you overcome setbacks. At the same time, being positive in the face of extreme adversity isn't always possible either. So, next time you're faced with a setback, whether that's misplacing your keys, losing your job, or some other less than ideal situation you find yourself in, take a deep breath and don't react. And then ask yourself these three questions. What happened? How did it happen? Where do I now need to focus in order to move forwards? Thinking less negative is your key to turning a negative outcome into having a positive experience.